Hey, it's your girl Kayla, and this is the first episode of the Bible Breakdown, the survival's guide to learning the Bible. Hopefully this brings you and me closer to God, so let's get on with the episode. So in this episode, we will be talking about the creation of you, me, and everything that we can see. And that's going to be Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 31. So verse 1 of the Bible says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." So it just talks about the creation of the heavens and earth and how earth didn't have any form. And so how I understood that to be is that, like, here's earth with like land and water on top of it, and then here's heaven, and there's like no separation between the two. So like how we know that like the sky is above and the earth is beneath and the water is where the water is, like that didn't exist. And so in the darkness that was going on, God was like, let there be light so I can see what's going on here. And so that's exactly what he did. God said, let there be light, and light was there, and God said, and this is good. And so on day one was when there was the first night and the first day. And then day one of God creating the earth ended. And so on day two, God said, and this is verse 6, by the way, he said, then let there be expanses in the midst of the water. And so basically what that is that there was now a dividing line between the heavens and the earth. So whereas on the first day, like you didn't know what was what and what was where, on day two, he made it very clear, like here's heaven, here's earth, and there was like a dividing plane. And so like kind of what I thought of is like if you've ever been out on the ocean, like it seems like the ocean and the sky meet and it just goes on for days. And so that's kind of when that separation was created. Day two was a pretty chill day. That's all he did. And then he just kept chilling. So we're gonna move on to day three. And in day three, God said, let the water under the heavens gather together and let there be dry land. And so basically what that is the creation of like the oceans, the seas, the lakes, and all that good stuff. And then of course, dry land, because before it was like, here's the land, ain't nowhere for you to stand. And so he separated the two, and then there was, dry land and there was water. And he called dry land earth and the water seas. So there was like sea. And then he was also like, all right, got all this land, what should I do with it? And he was like, let me like grow some trees and stuff. And so the earth sprouted vegetation. And so that's where you get like trees and plants and grass and, anything that you can think of that's pretty much green. That's what he created on the second part of the third day. But one of the things that he did was he created trees and other plants that had seeds so that they could reproduce naturally. But they yielded the seeds of their own trees or of their own like species, so to speak, which is why apple trees don't grow pears and pineapples don't grow out of trees. So a tree by the fruit that it bears, which is like prophecy. But that's truly just what it means. Like you can't get a pine tree from a grape seed, and you can't get an apple from a pear. Like that's it. That's the only way that I can explain it. And so that was the end of day three. Like he was like, all right, separating water and land, give you some trees and shade and stuff, and I'm gonna go to sleep. And so like day four, God said, let there be light in a vault to separate the sky and the day from night. And so what that just means is that God made it so that there was of course, an abundance of light during the day, but at night it's not like pitch black. It's like the moon. And so like there was super bright light during the day and like dimmer light at night. And that's Genesis 1:14, just in case you want to read it, just in case I didn't explain it the best. And he also created like the signs of which like mark the signals of like the different seasons. And it also created the difference between day to day. So, you know, like when the sun is up, then it's day. When the sun goes down, then it's night. When the sun comes back up, it's a new day. So that's what else it created. And it also created the separation between years. Okay, so moving on to day 5. So on day 5, God created sea creatures, which is like the fish and, you know, that's all that lives in the sea. Oh, and like dolphins and stuff like that. Okay, so on day 5, God created living creatures in the sea, and he also created birds to fly like above the ground in the heavens and things like that. And so while he was creating the sea creatures and the birds and all that good stuff, in the Bible it says that he was like, go be fruitful and multiply and to make the ocean or the seas abundant and, you know, all of that good stuff like that. So he's basically telling them to procreate and have more fish and more birds and things like that so that the earth can like begin to become full and like abundant. And so that was day 5. He created sea creatures, which are like fish, what we call them today, and birds. And then on day 6, God created animals that roam on dry land. So it says God created cattle, creeping things, which I call like ants and bugs and other things like that. I don't know what else creeping things would be. And also beasts of the earth is what it says. And on day 6, he also created man and woman. And so on Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. And God created Adam, which is what he will be named in chapter 2. We're going over that next week. But God gave man dominion, which is power or control over all of the fish in the sea, all of the animals, all of the birds. He gave them, you know, power over everything. But he also gave them the trees and the other vegetation to eat from. And God created Eve, or the first woman, after Adam. And once she was formed, he also gave her the same like power or control over the animals and the fish and things like that. And he also said to Adam and Eve, were the first woman and man, to go be fruitful and multiply. And that eventually is going to be the start of creation or people as we know it. And so the last verse of chapter 1 of Genesis says, God saw everything and he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning of the 6th day, and as we know, on the 7th day he rests. But again, that's in chapter 2, so we'll go over that next week. And so yeah, so that is the creation of the earth in 6 days. And so yeah. All right, so a recap of what we learned today. Day 1, God created heavens and earth with no form. Day 2, God separated heaven from earth. Day 3, God gathered all the water in one place and all the land in one place. And he created vegetation. Day 4, God made a separation between seasons and days and also the years. Day 5, God created sea creatures and birds to fly all around. And day 6, God created land creatures and humans. So that wraps up the first episode of the Bible Breakdown. I want to give a special thanks to my director, my filmer, and my little sister, who's also my editor, Madison. And I also want to give a special thanks to my co-host, who you could not see, Mackenzie, my other little sister. Until next time, this has been your girl Kayla, breaking down the Bible one chapter at a time. Remember, God loves you and so do I.